Hey YouTubers, Rob here with another look at a Commodore 64 game. This time it's Deep Strike. As the title screen says, developed by Nick Wilson and published in 1986 by Durell Software. This is I guess the way I'd describe it, sort of back of the napkin, is a simple little arcade flight game. It was, I believe, originally developed on the Spectrum. You can sort of see that from a lot of the simplistic UI here, but also things like the loading screen had a lot of black borders around it, which is sort of common because the Spectrum's lower screen res. So I'll dive in. There's a basic front end here where you can view your score table, change your difficulty skill. I'm going to keep it on easy for now, and dive in. So I think so starting off, coming to as you can sort of see, it's all set during the First World War. I'm going to bring the map up and run through the instruments. So the bottom row has your current score and your high score. Above your score is your ammo belt, showing how much ammo you have left, and above that your fuel. The blue propeller is your plane's health. As you get shot from the other planes, anti-air defenses, that'll slowly wear out, and when that wears out, you die and it's game over. In the middle is the compass. Pardon me. The compass points where you should be flying to get to the target. As you can see with the map up, we're the little plane icon towards the bottom, and our target is the X towards the top. The idea is you really should be flying with that centered vertically the whole time, as otherwise if you go too far off course, you'll be under heavy anti-air attack. The green propeller indicates the damage for the current bomber, and you can see the little 3 plane formation that indicates how many bombers are left, and underneath is the remaining bombs. So the basic idea is you need to fly from where you are to the target, escorting the bombers and making sure they don't get shot down. If they get shot down and all the bombers are shot down, it's essentially game over. So taking off, we can see the bombers already arrived. So controls are standard joystick to move, fire button to shoot, and drop bombs, which is the first already change we can tell from the other versions, where on the Spectrum, for instance, it's actually a separate key to drop the bombs, which means it's incredibly hard. You're dealing with attacking the targets that are potentially going to take out a bomber, but also have to engage ground targets. And if we can sort of get the first thing that frustrates me with this game is the way having the bomber in front of you. I mean, makes sense from a game perspective, but is ultimately a bit of a frustration in terms of actually playing the thing. As when you try to line up targets, you try to line up these balloons or the planes to engage them, it becomes very hard to do so without potentially hitting the bomber. And if that happens, it's you lost one of your bombers, and you jeopardize the risk of actually accomplishing the mission. So that's a bit of a frustration there. The other more obvious thing is, well, the color clash and the sluggishness, which are usually common when a game is just ported from the Spectrum, not really converted and adapted to be on the C64 properly. And it means that we're not using hardware sprites, we're not using any of the hardware facilities the C64 has to offer, and I think it makes there's just latency. There's a bit of latency in the controls. And this sluggish is just. I feel it's. I mean, you might think it's appropriate being that it's the First World War and the planes were relatively slow in that time frame, but I just think it's not that much fun. So where are we, relatively speaking? Oh, we're almost at the target. And the other thing is, the fact that... Oh, and we've just lost the first of our bombers. When a bomber goes down, you do have to wait a brief period of time for the next one to spawn in and and sometimes it seems to be fairly quick on respawning. Other times it takes a while, like it is now, which is, you know, inconsistency in gameplay. Had I actually made had I actually reached the fuel depots, which is what you're tasked with destroying here, I would have felt a little unfair had I not been able to actively engage them. We're almost on target now. One thing that is missing with this version that isn't on that's not in this version that's on the other computer versions is the ground. So, like, I've seen screens in the Spectrum and Amstrad CPC versions, and you actually have hills mapped onto the ground, and it actually looks, truth be told, actually looks kind of nice. But here we are, we've actually made it to the fuel depot. But yeah, in those versions, Okay, first problem, we've now run out of ammo as well, so now I can only hit fire to drop bombs and not... But we have completed the mission. But yeah, so those versions have this nice sort of fairly simple 3D polygonal terrain, and it sort of adds an extra challenge. You now have to avoid the terrain, and prevent yourself and the bomb from crashing into the terrain. Whereas the C64 version, it's all flat, and I think you've lost an element of challenge there, and I think it's actually made a fairly simplistic game that much harder. And I think I look at it as being the terrain was taken out obviously for speed reasons, but it takes away from the game too much. So now we've actually completed our first mission, even though we lost the bomber too late at the time. So we're going up again. We've still got our one bomber left, and essentially it's the same pattern. We escort this bomber. Now that's a couple of things. So I've now lost the final bomber, and essentially it's game over for me. As without the bomber, everything targets you. So the other couple of annoyances there is when I did take off, why was I not repaired? I would have expected that having completed the mission, you'd be repaired before taking off, and possibly getting a new resupply of bombers. And ultimately, I think it's an artificial restriction. That's sort of the thing I'd expect in an actual arcade machine, but on a home machine, I would have expected the difficulty ramp up in other ways. So ultimately, like, I am rather disappointed with this game. It could have been, with a little more polish, a little more attention to detail, and a proper conversion. It could actually have been a really fun game to play on the system. But it just feels, it was like just given a half-weighted thought, and no real effort was given. I think that the game could have been converted well in the hands of a programming team. And I think that there is something lost for that. So all in all, I mean, the only real saving grace of this version of the game is this really cool music that's playing by the classic composer Rob Hubbard. But that's not enough to save it, and it's definitely one I think you should avoid. It's funny, when I think about this, I never actually had it. I thought I never had it on the real machine back in the day, but it turns out it was another game on an issue of Commodore format, and I mustn't have played it that much, because I definitely don't remember it. And I can see why playing it now, why I would leave it behind, is it doesn't feel fun. The challenge feels artificial. With all these sort of restrictions, it's hard to line up a target, the bomber in front obscuring your view. All of these little things don't make the game fun. So ultimately, Deep Strike, I'd say avoid. I mean, if you really want to check it out, I'd say do it on the Spectrum or CPC. Definitely not on the C64. With that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed the video. I look forward to bringing you another game shortly. And as usual, like, rate, subscribe, share. All that stuff does help, getting a little more visibility. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.